Welcome to the Beyond Jiu Jitsu podcast. This is episode number 85. We're talking about everything to do with owning a gym, opening a gym, the journey of my co-host AC's journey to becoming a gym owner, Jiu Jitsu gym extraordinaire.
That's me. Hi, everyone. Adam Charles here, owner of Alliance Sydney, with my boy, my girl, my bird, Kieren Lefebvre, the button masher.
Yeah, the blue belt.
The blue belt.
Yeah.
How many stripes?
Zero.
No stripes.
No stripes.
Yep.
Whose fault's that, Adam?
I ran out of tape.
I'll buy you some, mate. I'll bring some tape in. BYO stripes.
Yeah, imagine that. Bring your own stripes. Yeah, you got to bring you.
Yeah.
Actually, it's funny. My wife's going on a yoga retreat, and she was saying it's bullshit. I have to take my own yoga mat.
What the hell? Should be supplied.
Yeah.
Yoga retreat.
Yeah.
Nice. Where's that?
I don't know, but it's leaving me home north Sydney somewhere. It's leaving me
local.
alone with the rug rat. So that should be cool.
Nice.
But yeah, I won't be at the gym. So you can have some days off then because I won't be there.
When's that?
I'm not there Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Oh, that's this week.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I won't. I'll train until Thursday.
Yeah. And then phone it in. So we're going to talk a little bit about owning a gym and my journey to owning a gym, as well as, just some questions that come up, some of the things that go on behind the scenes, because a lot of people think that when, all you do is rock up and teach an hour class or something and disappear and that's your whole job and life. And maybe some people get to that point in running their business. I'm sure that's not unreasonable to think that could happen, but yeah, we'll
Isn't that what you do?
Yes. But we'll answer those when we get to it.
Right.
Are you recording, bro?
Yeah, 100%.
I just wanted to check the cameras were on. I know a lot of people listen on Spotify, but just this morning, one of our students, Rami, I was talking to him about the podcast. And
You talking shit? Rami
No,
talking shit?
no, but it just made me think because I didn't notice you hit record on the cameras and Rami was like, oh man, I'm more of a visual person. So he's like, I actually put the YouTube one on TV while I'm working and it's just on in the background. He's like,
Shout
I
out
like
to
to see
Rami.
the faces. Hi, Rami.
Hey.
Yeah, he said he likes to see our faces.
Ah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So owning a gym, right? We've spoken lots about how to make money in jiu-jitsu. And of course, some competitions pay money. We briefly corrected a previous episode where my friend Ali mentioned, man, a lot of people make a lot of money through AJP,
yeah.
just through competitions. But I would still say the majority of money is made in either owning a gym and teaching or seminars / instructionals. You could argue to some degree anyone can open a gym, whereas to have enough people turning up to your seminars or buying your instructionals, you pretty much have to have either had some big competition success or become just a social media influencer. There's people selling instructionals who absolute dog shit jiu-jitsu athletes, competitors, instructors, but they've got 10 million Instagram followers, so people know who they are and buy their shit.
Or you could run a jiu-jitsu podcast.
We should start a podcast. Wait, what?
Wait, hang on a minute. Yeah, we should have an instructional coming soon.
On how to run a podcast.
That would be good.
So how did I get to this point? Well, I mean, a quick little story time about how I got to this position. I kind of dropped out of school, actually. In Australia, for any international listeners, you finish what's called year 10, right? And then you can actually leave school after year 10, or you can choose to stay on and do year 11 and 12, which is still considered high school, but it's kind of what they say is, you've got to do year 11 and 12 if you want to go to university, is kind of the very basic way of how it's explained to you. And a lot of people leave at the end of year 10 and go into trades, like get apprenticeships and things like that. Anyway, I stayed around for year 11, did one term and was like, I'm out. and I left, went traveling and stuff. And because I had spent time, that classic growing up, you have parents, teachers, adults. What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do? Blah, blah, blah. And I remember I looked at a lot of the different courses, subjects that are taught at or like the particular university that is near where I grew up. And there was not a single subject where I thought, oh, I could do that for the rest of my life, sort of thing, or I'd be willing to do that for the rest of my life. The only thing that I was kind of more interested in is, and actually you wouldn't know this, but I actually wanted to be a pilot, like a fighter pilot.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And then essentially two things stopped that. One, you would know, knowing me face to face, that I'm way too tall.
Yeah.
There's
What's the height limitation? Do you know?
I'm not sure, but it is not. It's less than 6'4". That's for sure. Right? I'm way too tall. But then it was also, then I was like, oh, you got to be really good at physics and maths and shit. And I was like,
you got to be smart.
And I was like, that's not me either. Yeah. So I was screwed either way. Yeah. So I kind of just left and I traveled and stuff. And then for many years, I was always into martial arts, did some Korean martial arts that was a bit, it was fine, but, not really a combat sport. Then I got into Muay Thai. And I remember even when I did, so the first sort of martial art that I got into was Hapkido. And that's not a massive martial art. Most Hapkido dojos, if you will, only run a couple of classes a week. They're very community driven. You can't run a business. Maybe you can, right? Maybe there's some gyms that do, but at least the ones I've experienced in Australia, it's just kind of the people who usually teach those classes are doing it for fun or to give back. It's not a money-making thing. And I remember even when I did Hapkido, I was like, not necessarily Hapkido, but just martial arts as a whole, I thought, oh man, if I could make money doing this, this is what I enjoy doing. Then I got into Muay Thai. Once I started, moving away from the art side of things into the combat sports, the more real side of it. And so I started thinking about Muay Thai and, I was never very good at it. So it didn't really pique my interest to think that that's what I would do. But then I ended up doing Jiu Jitsu. And I remember once I wasn't far into training Jiu Jitsu that I realized you could run a gym and make money being a Jiu Jitsu instructor, that I thought, no, this is what I'm doing. So that's what prompted the whole move to Brazil. I mean, yes, when I first moved to Brazil, I had those young aspirations of being a world champion. Didn't work out for me. But even before, I had the thought of, I'm actually pretty good at this. I want to try be a world champion. Prior to that, I always had the thought of, no, this for me is my university. I didn't go to uni. I didn't finish school. This is what I'm getting qualified in because I'm going to open a gym one day. So the whole time from day one that I'd moved to Brazil, it was always with I'm going to move back to Australia and open a gym. All right. So that was my thought process. Like I don't want to say it was my only option because I had looked at other options, but I kind of didn't have another option. It's like some people open gyms coming from another career where they can to some extent do it risk-free in the sense that, hey, if it doesn't work out, I just go, I'm still a partner at the law firm or something. But I didn't have that. So it kind of, it had to work out. And so far that it has done.
Yeah. It's kind of like there's this like philosophy where, you can say it in more like a bro way, but like plan B is for bitches, like put all your eggs in one basket and go.
Sounds like something Dave Goggins would say. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, I have. It's similar. I think it's someone like that. But yeah. Wow, that's interesting.
So then when we moved back from Brazil, let's now talk a little bit about so that was my thought process, but what's actually involved if anyone is thinking, hey, I could see myself opening a gym. That's what I want to do one day. What's involved? Man, a lot. I do. It's funny. I actually quite coincidentally had a bit of a conversation with a student on this kind of topic. this morning where, I said, well, this has come up a lot where we talk about the standards in jiu-jitsu, and obviously the growth of the sport. It's amazing that there's more people doing it, and the professional standards are just going higher and higher and higher. I've said multiple times that give me the current, I'm a heavyweight, give me the current blue belt heavyweight world champion, and he'd probably smash me in a roll. Like the standards of professional jiu-jitsu is it's astronomical. It's so crazy. However, the growth of the sport has also made the standards for the hobbyist or the average person complete dog shit.
It's like the Pareto principle, right? So like the top gets better, and then, that distributes, the skill set.
Yeah, I kind of.
Proportionately.
Would you like an analogy to help explain it?
Please, give me one. Give me that shit.
I think about it like this. For me, it would be, and this might not be applicable in other parts of the world, but people in Australia will get this reference very clearly.
So 2% of our listeners.
Yeah. But think about when sushi, the cuisine, kind of first was exported from Japan. In the early days, it was probably, I assume, just really that, high-end sushi, right? And you could still go find a restaurant in Sydney, Australia, that's high-end sushi. And for me, that's kind of where I'm coming from. Like I'm thinking, well, I'm a fully qualified sushi chef. I make good sushi. I want like the best for my customers, blah, blah, blah. But then at the same time, there's this dog shit sushi train that's in a train station selling those $2 rolls of sushi. And I'm there as a sushi chef going, that's not fucking sushi. Right?
It's bullshit. Just rice
bullshit,
and chicken.
Right? It's kind of like that. It's great because the masses more people are becoming educated about jiu-jitsu.
About sushi. Oh, sorry.
About sushi, right? And more people are eating sushi, but not necessarily a lot of people are getting good sushi. And this student was saying to me, yeah, man, like it's just, some of the other guys yesterday morning were saying, because I wasn't there yesterday at the gym, saying, oh, man, the way that they came from other gyms. And one guy said, in the 4 months he's been here, he's learnt more than he has in the last 4 years he was at his old gym. Like, yeah, because like you don't know till you know, these people stuck in these terrible gyms. I saw another guy who recently had received a belt promotion, and I remember just thinking, man.
I know who you're talking about, yeah.
Like, I said, okay, yeah, like, good on you. I'm happy for you because you're whatever. But I'm not even that good at jiu-jitsu, and I would roll with you and go, oh, yeah, he's an okay blue belt. But now this guy's walking around with like a black belt or whatever, and I'm and I'm not even that good. The standards are just, I don't know. So for me, opening a gym, it was very important that I wanted to be a qualified, instructor, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't want to just be opening a restaurant because I can cook. I want to be, no. I'm a fully fledged chef and I know what I'm doing.
Specialist in this.
Yeah, like I'm an expert in this field.
Yeah.
That's why I'm opening a gym.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a lot of these gyms, particularly in Sydney, that just go for quantity over quality. And yeah, I'm torn because I love seeing the growth of the sport. I want nothing but the sport to grow, but at what cost, right? So anyway, that's for me. So that was my university in Brazil. So we moved back to Australia and we moved back with nothing, bro. I'm from Australia, but I don't have any family in Sydney. So we moved back and spent all our money to get back here because 5 years living in a country earning currency that is, a third of the Australian dollar or whatever the exchange rate was at the time. By the time we bought our flights and my wife's visa and we brought a dog over from Brazil.
Wow,
which
that
if you're not aware,
super expensive.
Yeah.
God damn.
If you're not aware, quarantine in Australia is very tight. So bringing animals in is crazy complicated and expensive. So we moved back with nothing. Straight back to Sydney, no job, no apartment, no anything, no dollars. And then, you finally find an apartment and you're like, oh yeah, settle in. I'm going to have a shower. I don't have any towels. Like, oh, let's just,
Use a shirt. Come on, bro.
Let's just have a microwave dinner. Yeah. I got no spoons, right? Like, or whatever, So
that shit adds up. For anyone listening that for some reason hasn't moved out of home, when you do, all these like little expenses add up so goddamn quick.
Yeah, they really do.
It's like thousands and thousands of dollars just on, towels and spoons.
Yeah, just spoons.
That's all you want.
So the first couple of years was spent just saving capital. So I was still training. I just found whatever gym. Actually, I was quite fortunate to end up meeting, Levi Jones Leary and Ari and Hope. And so I got to train with them a lot and become friends with them. So that was quite nice. That was because I had zero exposure to the Australian jiu-jitsu community other than essentially Lockie and Livia from Absolute MMA because they had been over to Brazil. And so I met them when they came over, but they're in Melbourne. So I had no connections with anyone in Sydney regarding jiu-jitsu. Anyway, so training and working, right? So now you've established you want to open a gym and let's say you've saved your capital. For me, it took a few years because I started from nothing.
Right.
So what's your first step? Well, you have to kind of decide where you want to open the gym. One thing that people sometimes get wrong is they look for an area or location that doesn't already have a jiu-jitsu gym. And you could take that angle, but it's kind of to some extent an unnecessary risk, in my opinion, because if you go somewhere that already has one or two jiu-jitsu gyms, essentially they've proven that there's a market for it. There's actually a really good TED talk that's it's not the person on stage, it's like a cartoon while they're giving the TED talk. And it actually explains that why in business, competing businesses are always really close together, right? And
it's like when you see used cars and they're all in the same row, in the same place.
Yeah. Well, because this is how, let me try butcher this real quickly for you. But essentially that was described like this. Imagine you've got a football field, like a beach that's 100 meters long, right? Mm-hmm. And you've got two ice cream vendors with their little like portable carts. And you go, well, you would think it would make sense for each of them to pitch at the opposing ends at the 25-meter mark, right? So they're evenly spaced, okay? And they get an even amount of customers. But then what happens when, one moves up to the 30-meter mark, right? And then the other guy's like, oh, hey, well, now you're getting more customers than me because you're closer. And then long story short, it kind of results in them just neither one wanting to concede and both being at the 50-meter mark. Mm. So they still have equal amount of customers just in the opposite directions of each other while also not conceding any to the competitor. Anyway, it's a long way of saying that opening a gym in an area that already has a jiu-jitsu gym, as long as it's not saturated, is proof that there's a market for it. Whereas if you go somewhere where there's no gym, I'm not saying it can't work. Obviously, there's a lot to consider. Maybe you're a small town. Maybe there's a brand new shopping center being built there and you're banking on it exploding, whatever. But so you got to choose your location. Once you've decided on the area, probably the hardest part of opening a gym is getting your commercial space. And this would depend on the country that you're in or even just the state or city you're in. But you've got a few, at least in Sydney, I found it really hard because there's a few things to consider. Firstly, it's got to be obviously in the right location. It's got to be the right price. It's got to be the right layout. So you could go inspect a space and there's a bunch of structural columns everywhere and it's not going to work, mm-hmm. right? Or, I've looked at spaces that would have been perfect except there's, a staircase in the middle and you're like, oh, fuck, or not a staircase, but like two steps or something. It's like two different heights and you're going, oh man, if only it was just the one level, So yeah, it's got to be the right location, the right size as well, because that's part of it. It might be the perfect location and everything, the perfect layout and everything. but then it's only 80 square meters. Okay. Location, size, layout, and it needs to be then approved by the owner. So the landlords sometimes don't want anything to do with gyms. And then it also has to be, at least in New South Wales, council approved. It needs to be the appropriate zone. So different places are zoned differently, and you can't just open a commercial business in any zone. To find a spot that ticks all 5 of those, man, it's really hard. 2 of them are mandatory. And obviously, if it has to be council approved, otherwise it's no go ahead. It has to be approved by the owner, otherwise it's no go ahead. So you're left with these 3 that you usually have to be willing to pay more than you want to, or it be slightly not the location you want, or to be—
You've got to concede on one of them.
Yeah, slightly not the best layout. That is really hard, man. It's really, really hard to tick all those boxes. But, you know, like look at our current gym. If you looked at that, like the layout is pretty terrible, right? It's 3 old shops that were all combined. But I mean, it works, right?
Definitely works.
The location's good. The price is good. The council approves of it. The owner approves of it. But I had to kind of concede on the layout. But man, it works. Like it's perfectly fine. I mean, I've been to worse, smaller gyms.
Yeah.
Right? Once you find your space, one bit of advice I'll give you is it's not as easy. People just think that you got the space, you just throw the mats down and you're good to go. Man, it's like so much more work than that, eh? Like even if you're half-assing it, it's more than just throwing the mats down. But to do it properly, the fit out is, okay, don't get me wrong, it's nothing as complicated as a fit out for a weightlifting gym. Of course, there's no equipment. You don't have to make sure that the ground can support someone doing a 200 kilo deadlift or any of that. But it is still harder than you think to lay the mats out. The fit out, you need to make sure you give yourself enough time for your fit out. I'm not looking forward to having to do a fit out again at a new gym.
Yeah, and if you were to outsource that, like your budget would just skyrocket, right?
Yeah, so I'm not that. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I didn't outsource it, so I'm not sure what it would cost you to pay someone, and I'm not even sure who you would get, like a carpet layer,
the Fuji mat guys.
Yeah, or I don't know if they do fit outs on this side of the world.
They do.
They do?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go.
Man, I've looked into it.
All right.
So I'm opening a gym in Rose Bay.
Oh, shit.
Right next door, bitch.
You just rent the golf course across the road. Yeah, so, the fit out is quite a big job. And, yeah, but I don't know. Maybe for a second gym, would I pay someone to do it? I guess it depends on the cost, but maybe. So it's a lot of work, and especially when you kind of don't know what you're doing. And it hurts as well, depending on the mats you get. We got those really nice 2x1 meter mats, and they obviously don't perfectly fit everywhere when you have to cut them up. Oh man, it's just like,
hurts your soul.
Yeah.
It's like this mat's like $200.
Yeah, because you're never going to use that same cut again, right? So when you relocate, if you take those mats with you, any of them that you've cut are pretty much gone skis.
Yeah.
Or they would just be cut down again into some, it hurts a little bit, but but that's part of it.
But I think you made a good point that sometimes when people look at things like business ventures, I should say, it looks easier than it is. And it's the same with like even something simple like being a personal trainer. You look at that and you think, fuck, I can do that, or like opening a gym. Yeah, you just chuck some mats down, I'm already black belt. I can run a gym. But there's so many things that you're not considering. Not to mention the real estate, but things like insurance, things like having payment systems, things like getting your first few students, managing your students, like getting your correct insurance, and you're working with Children's Check and all of this stuff. And man, that's like barely scratching the surface. And like managing your finances, your accounting, like the list goes on and on and on.
Yeah, there's a lot, because most people who go into it would be similar to me in the sense that I don't have a degree in business. I didn't do any business studies or anything. So there was a lot of learning that had to go with it. Exactly like you said. People sometimes say, oh, so what do you do in between the classes? They think that my life is just teaching a 1 hour class here and there or whatever. And we said at the start, I'm sure some people get their business to that.
Yeah,
but it's because
they hire people.
Yeah, exactly. It's because they're paying other people to do all the other shit.
Yeah.
I do all that other shit.
Yeah.
So what is that other shit?
You're a receptionist.
Yeah. Who do you think cleans the mats? Me, not my goddamn students. I've ranted before about gyms who make their students clean the mats. Fuck, ridiculous. Do it yourself or pay someone.
Yeah.
Your students are paying you. They're not paying you to clean the mats. Right? So who cleans the mats? Me. But like, it's more than that. Who, when I run out of cleaning products, who
buys that
who
shit?
gets more of that?
Who cleans the bathroom?
I do. Who cleans the bathroom? I do. You know, I mean, it's things that you overlook, something as simple as, well, there's no toilet paper in the bathroom, right? Who do you think has to like restock that? I do, you know, like you said, the managing your students, having a way to take payment. So all these things are overheads that this was an advice that was given to me before I opened. But I kind of found it hard to grasp fully until I was in it. But I had a friend who owns East Van Jiu Jitsu, which is also an alliance gym in Vancouver. And he said, if I can give you one bit of advice, and I'm going to push this advice forward, that it is to be fully aware of all of your overheads before you open.
Yep.
And that is... As I just said, I found it hard to fully grasp until you're in it. But let me just to name a few. So your biggest overhead is your rent. Okay. Let's not consider you're paying yourself because in the beginning of any new business, you don't get paid.
Yep.
Right. But all your overheads, man. So the rent's the biggest one. But then at least here in Australia, you need public liability insurance. You need to have what you mentioned, a working with children certificate. So if you're going to be running kids classes, you need to have this certificate to say that you can work with children. You need to have a first aid certificate.
CPR, all that stuff.
Yeah, you got to have be CPR trained and all that. And then you've got, you're not 100% going to know what your electricity bill is and that until you're in the space using it, but you account for a rough idea of what your electricity is going to cost. Yeah, all your cleaning products. When you order in gis, there's always some wastage, as in you might order in 20 gis, but you don't sell all 20 at once. Like
that holds up all your cash.
Yeah, right. Yep. That's still a huge amount of money that you've put into stock that's just sitting there. And all it takes is 1 or 2 gis not to sell, or maybe 1 gi was faulty or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, you're out of pocket. Right, you've got to have in place a way to take payments, and then whichever company is taking those payments, they're charging you a fee to take those payments.
Exactly. So there's a surcharge. I think the average is about 1.5 to 2% surcharge on these transaction sites, and then you got software subscriptions to the management software itself.
So in the beginning when I first opened, I didn't have a software. A software management system. Like
a CRM.
Because my customer base from day one was so small, I didn't require it. But then, moving forward now I do. And I mean, just off the top of my head, it's $100-something a month or whatever. Other things you don't think about, having a Spotify subscription. Otherwise you got music playing in your gym with ads coming on, which you don't want.
Have that, yeah.
And all these things add up, right? So then you've also got to put on top of that
websites.
Okay, your website, right?
Hosting,
your hosting fees.
Even if you do it yourself, like you're still paying a hosting fee.
Exactly. Even if you use Square or whatever,
you're still paying for that,
or Wix or whatever to make your own website, you're still paying fees for that. Then you've got. Okay, this is very specific to where you are in the world, but at least here in Australia, you've got different ways that your business can be structured, and that changes the way that you pay tax and everything. And it's actually quite brutal. I describe it like this. It's so hard for small businesses, and why a lot of small businesses try to deal in cash is because it's kind of like this. I remember when it happened to me at first, I passed the threshold of
GST?
Yeah, of GST.
Which is 74,000?
75,000, I think, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't want to crap on about it too much for people who are not in Australia. Like, well, GST, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, they've got this thing that when you get to $75,000, you need to pay this extra tax, right? And I remember when I went through that transition, I was like, oh man, I'm starting to do real well. I can pay myself something. And then it kind of hit me like this. It was as if my business had had an increase of, let's say, 15% revenue, and the government said, cool, now you pay 17% more tax. And I was like, what? So I've started making more money, but I'm actually making less, and all these things add up, man, and I learned from mistakes. Like a lot of people who open a business, I got hit with like an $11,000 tax bill or something like that was really unexpected. And I was like, oh my God, because of partly my mistake, but also partly just, a bad accountant or whatever. You will make mistakes. But really, if you can account for all your overheads, because when you look at it on paper and it's all written out, it's much clearer than what people do sometimes. They might just go like, let's say, oh, okay, so my rent is, let's say whatever it is, my rent's $1,450 a week, right? Commercial rent in Australia is very expensive. So let's say, oh yeah, it's that. Okay, well, if I'm charging people $50 a week, okay, I need 29 students and I'm breaking even.
No, bro.
No, man, it's not as clear as that, because maybe you're charging them 50, but each one of those is going to be, depending on what software, what third-party company you use. I use one that takes 99 cents per.
Oh, so, that's nice.
Yeah, it's lower than the ones that take like percentage base.
Yeah.
But then, so, okay, it's actually not $50 I'm getting, it's 49 when you think about it like that. But you can't account for it like that because that 99 cents is tax deductible, and all this shit.
Yeah, so you get back like 40 cents on the dollar to that, depending on your tax threshold, depending if you're an LLC or if you're, a sole trader. Yeah, it's so complicated. So like, I think, and I've learned similar lessons, like not all the lessons, obviously, because I've worked in different businesses. I've started a few businesses now, and you're 100% right when it comes to overheads. Unless someone sits you down and says, bro, you need to like think about these things. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? You'll just fly in blind. And unless you have like a blanket or a safety buffer of money, you will fuck it up. And cash is the lifeblood to a business. If you run out of money, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Unless you can go into debt, which most small businesses can't because they don't have a line of credit. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. You definitely do have to have yourself a buffer. In terms of, you can't really give a number as to how much capital you need because it's going to depend where you are, how big the gym is, whatever.
Yeah.
And everything. But I remember we had to invest a little bit more than we thought we had to. It wasn't like we had to take out a loan or anything. We did it all from money that was saved.
Wow.
But, things that we hadn't accounted for. What was one extra fee that was here in Australia? It's common practice in commercial real estate that you pay the legal fees of the landlord's lawyer who draws up the contract. They delete the last tenant's name and write yours in. Yeah. And that was like a $2,000 bill. I was
about to say the thousands.
Something. Yeah. And it's like, what? Like we hadn't accounted for that.
Yeah.
As well as that, you typically have to pay bond as well. Mm-hmm. So you're having to front like whatever it is, 10, 15, 20 grand or something in rent from day one.
And there's something that you taught me when teaching me about real estate. Like a lot of real estate have demolition clauses and like, clauses like 3+3 and 5+5, which is basically, you got to read your contract because if you have a demolition clause and that gets activated, then all of your fit out fees, like the $100,000 that you just spent fitting out your brand new gym with all those new mats, boom, you're gone.
Yeah.
You don't get to recoup that. That's part and parcel of running a business.
Yeah.
So much risk.
Yeah. You definitely want to be aware of your contract with the landlord. Again, it's going to depend where you are in the world or in the country, but you want to be pretty switched on about it because they're always written in favor of the landlord.
100%.
And when I open a future space, I'm going to be way more savvy about it, and I'm going to be way more willing to dig my heels in and be like, nah, bro, like, nah, that's not happening because I've got experience now. But I didn't at this first premises. And it's not like I lost money, but there were just some costly mistakes, you could say, but it was all part of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, just so much stuff goes on behind. It's really, unless you're going to be someone who is going in with a business partner and you're kind of just kicking back and only teaching a class here and there and whatever because you've got your other full-time job as well. Some people do that as well. I've seen people do that where it's this passion project that they do. But if it's going to be your business and what you do to plan to have an income, man, what do you do between classes? Well, who the hell do you think answers the emails? Who do you think follows up when this payment failed or when this student still owes money or, maybe I'm just checking in with a student. Hey, man, how's your knee feeling after you tweaked it last week or whatever,
Yeah.
I mean,
we're not even talking about marketing. That hasn't even come into the equation.
God, we haven't even spoken about marketing.
Mate.
And that's I love in 2022, Instagram.
Bro. In 2022, marketing is like, I said cash is the lifeblood to a business, but fuck, marketing's a close second, mate.
We said at the start, you either need to run a business or teach seminars and instructionals. And if you were a marketing guru, man, you could be a blue belt, be selling instructionals. You have enough followers on Instagram, people will buy it. Man, they don't care.
My instructional's coming soon.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. It's releasing this month. Stay tuned.
So, it's, that's a whole nother part of it, right? And all this stuff, you look at it and you go, where's my return on investment? Mate, and a lot of the time, there isn't one, or you're not willing to take the risk on the return on investment.
So you need the buffer,
Yeah, so you kind of end up just doing it yourself. But we've done quite well. I mean, our gym, I think we only ran at a loss for the first 3 months.
That's so impressive.
And then I think it was like on month 3 or month 4 or something that after all our overheads and everything, I was like, I made $5. I remember crazy. It was like, I remember breaking even after 3 months and I was like, yes. And we've never had a month with a loss.
Like to put in context, most small businesses run at a loss for at least 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
You need to be prepared for that.
Yeah. That's also something you need to actually, that's a great bit of advice. I highly recommend that you put quite a firm line in the sand as to when you would cut your losses.
Yeah.
I don't think it's being pessimistic. It's just being prepared.
Yeah. Being intelligent.
You want to say like, okay, man, if we get to month whatever and we're not at X, like maybe you don't necessarily need to say if we're not making money by here, but you might say, if by month 8 we're not at least, 90% of or whatever it is, you need to have a cutoff.
I have an analogy for
this.
As
to where you can't continue to throw money away.
So I was...
I'll rate your analogy. Okay, hang on. We'll give it a 1 out of 10. Let's go.
You can't rate it before we fucking start. So this isn't even my analogy, but it's one that I heard. And when it comes to business, this concept of like drawing lines in the sand and like having very firm go, no go lines, as we call it in the Navy, you need to... the concept is referred to as protecting your flanks. And the story that goes along with it is in World War II, Winston Churchill they had a request from the French to come help them, defend against the German invasion, right? And obviously, full-blown war, Winston Churchill decided to go to the aid of the French. But what they needed to calculate is, okay, we're going to throw absolutely every single thing we can at this, but we need to calculate exactly how many air squadrons is required to defend England from a potential invasion from Germany if it all goes to shit. So they calculated it, and I don't remember the exact number, but it was something like 28 squadrons. So they're like, okay, we'll throw absolutely every single plane we have to help defend the French up until 28 squadrons. That is your go, no go line. And that's what they did. And lo and behold, the French were defeated in that German invasion. And what did Germany do? Started bombing Britain.
And then what did Britain do? Fucking took down the Luftwaffe or however
they did.
They
took out the Luftwaffe with their 28 squadrons that Winston Churchill and friends and generals, calculated that's what they need. That is protecting your flank. So in business,
I'm going to change
risks.
it. It's a 10 out of 10 analogy, Kieren.
Mate, it's not even mine. But in business, like yes, it's going to be risky, and it's your, it's your plan A. All your eggs are in that one basket. But if you haven't calculated how to protect your flank and things go to shit, you're fucked.
Yeah, you definitely have to have that, because otherwise, if you don't have that line, man, then you're going, if I. Like a junkie. If I just get a little bit more, and then all of a sudden you're 20K in the hole and you're just going, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't want that here. I'm not saying you're planning for failure, but failure is always an option, right? And you need to be prepared. I'm not going to lie, man. I remember and I'm sure a lot of businesses were the same, when we had our first COVID lockdown.
Yeah.
We were quite fortunate in Australia. There were a lot of government support for small businesses and stimulus packages and things like that.
But even they weren't enough for some businesses.
Yeah, I remember having thoughts of, man, I remember right as we were coming out of that first lockdown, I remember I was getting really close to thinking, I was already thinking, I don't know how much longer this can go on. I was really I could feel, it's like this, I think we're pretty close. And then luckily we came out of lockdown. But yeah, you've got to be prepared to fail. And I mean, I think that's just smart business, right? You've got to have those sort of go, no-go lines.
Yeah.
Protect your flank.
Protect your flanks. I love it.
We're gonna leave it there. We could go. This episode may not have been for everyone. It's a bit more niche, talking about some of the things involved.
But hey,
with
it's a good insight, right?
But it could also, we could speak another 2 hours about the things that go on behind the scenes of running a business, man. Things I forget. All of a sudden there'll be a kid who wants to buy a gi, and I'm like, fuck, I've run out of like the size belt that fits that kid.
Yeah.
And it's hard when you're a small business. It's easy to sit back from an outsider's perspective and go, oh man, just carry more stock. But like you said, like that stock that is just
it's a balance. It's a balancing
it's just money sitting in something that's worthless until it's sold. And I've done that before. I'll give you even another example. I had right before this grading we did, where I gave out a bunch of belts, I had a huge stock of belts, right? A, because I just wanted to stock up, and B, I knew there was a grading coming up. Now, we previously in Sydney and all the east coast of Australia have had a huge amount of rain, and pretty much all up and down the east coast, there's now houses, buildings that are just having massive mold problems, right? Because of all the rain. Like even nice houses are getting damp in through the walls, and there's mold.
Yeah.
Man, so I just went to look at these belts, and these belts are in plastic bags, like in their individual wrappers, and they were all moldy. I was like, fuck. So then who do you think is the one who has to unpackage all those, like not bleach them, but, put them in Dettol and wash them and dry them and everything, because they're brand new belts. They just need to be cleaned. Man, me. So, there's lots of little things that go on. And my friend who gave me the advice of checking, like having all your overheads, he also said, he described running a business like this. He said, man, you're like a firefighter, and there's lots of little fires, and you're just constantly, it's like playing Overcooked. You're just like constantly putting out little fires permanently. And I'm like, that sounds horrible.
That's what it's like being an entrepreneur.
But,
how effectively can you put out fires?
At the same time, I don't have a boss. Well, I do. It's the tax man.
And your wife.
And my wife. But, for me, it's very rewarding, and we could talk more about it. Obviously, if anyone has any specific questions regarding running a gym or the business side of it, we have our Ask a Black Belt. The next one, we're on episode 85, so the next one will be episode 90. Everyone knows the deal. Instagram, Linktree, audio questions, send them through. Otherwise, I think that's it.
Yeah, and just because we haven't done it in a while, if you want to support the show, feel free to support our Patreon. We post exclusive content to Patreon. We have an awesome group of people on Patreon that support us. So shout out to all the patrons. And if you want to get amongst it, you can do so through the link in our Linktree.
Yeah, you can. Guys, thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.